When my girlfriend completely dismissed me, I continued with my life. Months later, she is pleading for a second chance after her new partner dumped her, but I firmly declined. Be me, 31, Nathan. Still remember the exact moment those words left Olivia's lips. Not tonight or any night. The finality in her voice made my body go cold. Been married for 6 years. Things weren't perfect lately, but never expected something so final about our intimate life. Some background about me. Work as sales director at medium-sized tech company in Boston area. Nothing too fancy, but pays well. Been steadily climbing the ladder for 8 years. Really enjoy what I do. Met Olivia during junior year of college. She was studying psychology. I was in business administration. Clicked right away. Both ambitious but down to earth. Dated for 3 years before tying the knot. Had a modest wedding ceremony. About 80 guests, mostly family and close friends. Olivia became a corporate trainer. Made good money. We bought a nice 3-bedroom house in quiet suburb. That was about 4 years ago. No kids yet. Both focused on careers first. Always thought we had a good thing going. Both contributed to household equally. Took 2 vacations every year, usually 1 beach trip, 1 visiting family. Had decent group of friends. Other couples our age, pretty normal life. Nothing extraordinary, but stable and comfortable. At least that's what I thought. That evening started like any other normal day. Came home exhausted after a 10-hour shift. Dealing with difficult client. Had a presentation that flopped. Just wanted to see Olivia. Maybe order some Chinese. Watch something on Netflix. Normal couple stuff. Moment I walked in could tell something was off. Olivia sitting at kitchen island. Scrolling through her phone with weird intensity. Had dinner while talking about boring stuff. Her coworkers' drama. My project deadline. Just the usual crap. Moved to living room after... She kept scrolling through her phone. Probably on one of those feminist Instagram accounts. The ones she'd been obsessed with lately. I was trying to watch some documentary on TV. Leaned over to kiss her neck. Something that used to make her smile. She pulled away sharp. Like I'd tried to stab her or something. Don't, she said. Didn't even look up from her damn screen. I'm not in the mood. You haven't been in the mood for weeks now, I replied. Tried hard not to sound frustrated, even though I totally was. Is everything okay? That's when she put down her phone. Looked me straight in the eyes. Had this cold expression, never seen it before. Delivered those crushing words. Not tonight or any night. I'm done with that part of our relationship. My mind raced through million possible responses. Just sat there like an idiot. Mouth probably hanging open. How do you even reply to someone suddenly ending physical intimacy in marriage? No explanation. No room for discussion. Just a one-sided decision affecting us both. What exactly do you mean? I finally managed to ask. Hoping I misunderstood. Exactly what I said, she continued. Voice weirdly calm. Like she was explaining something to a child. I'm comfortable with our life together. The house, our social circle, the stability, but I'm no longer interested in physical intimacy with you. Or any man. I've been reading a lot about how women are conditioned to provide physical affection to men. I've decided I'm not participating in that patriarchal expectation anymore. You can accept it or not. That's your choice. Holy shit. She'd been getting deeper into that radical feminist stuff online recently, but never thought it would affect our relationship. Was completely blindsided. So you're just unilaterally deciding that our marriage doesn't include physical intimacy anymore? Without any discussion, I asked, trying to understand what was happening. I don't need your permission to set boundaries with my own body, she replied. Her tone getting that edge, the one I'd come to recognize, whenever she was quoting something from her online groups. The fact that you think this requires a discussion just shows how entitled men are to women's bodies. Sat back completely stunned. Olivia, this isn't about entitlement. This is about our relationship. About connection and intimacy between partners who supposedly love each other. Love doesn't mean I have to perform physical acts I no longer want to participate in, she countered. When did this change? When did you stop wanting to be with me that way? Asked, genuinely confused. Just 2 months ago, things had seemed normal. She just shrugged. It's been building for a while. I've just finally found the courage to vocalize it. Instead of performing for your benefit, that night slept on couch. Not because she asked, couldn't bear to lie next to someone who shattered my understanding of our relationship. Next few days were weird as hell. Still living together, still eating together, even watching TV together. But now there was this invisible wall between us. She acted like her declaration was ordinary, like announcing she wanted to change grocery stores, not the complete reshaping of our marriage. Tried bringing up counseling over breakfast. 3 days after her announcement, found a couples therapist with good reviews. I think we should talk to someone about what's going on between us. We don't need therapy, she responded dismissively, rolling her eyes like I was an idiot. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not going to be pressured into physical intimacy I don't want, just because society expects it. Maybe you should get therapy for your dependency on female validation. Jesus Christ. Of course she was right about not being pressured. Would never do that. But her complete unwillingness to even talk about this sudden change left me feeling like living with a stranger wearing my wife's face. Everything I said was twisted. Made me sound like some kind of oppressor. At night, laying on my side of our now purely functional bed, had moved back from couch, determined not to be displaced in my own home, would stare at ceiling wondering how I missed it. The gradual breakdown of our connection. Had I been so absorbed in work? Failed to notice her pulling away? Or had she hidden her feelings? Until reaching some breaking point I never saw coming. Reviewed our recent history looking for signs. Sure, our sex life had slowed down over past year, but seemed normal for couple married 6+ years. Both working demanding jobs. We still had date nights. Still held hands during movies. Still told each other, I love you before bed. At least we had until recently. One thing became real clear, real fast. Was now in marriage, where I was neither wanted nor needed. In any meaningful way, just convenient. A contributor to bills, social partner for couple-oriented gatherings, housemate who helped maintain outward image of marital success. Just another evil man she could point to. When talking to her new friends about setting boundaries, tried one more time to understand. Caught her on Saturday morning when we were both home. Olivia, I'm trying to respect your feelings, but I need to understand better. Did I do something wrong? Is there something I can change? She sighed dramatically, like my question was most exhausting thing ever. This is exactly the problem with men. You think everything is about you? This is about my journey and my autonomy. The fact that you're making it about what you did wrong just proves my point. But we're married, I said. Frustration building. Your decisions affect me too. So what? You think your entitlement to my body outweighs my right to control it? This is why the patriarchy persists. Because men like you can't handle women making their own choices. Walked away from that conversation feeling completely hopeless. No reasoning with her. No finding common ground. She had created narrative where any disagreement with her position just confirmed her worldview about oppressive men. 2 weeks after her declaration, found myself sitting in car outside our house. Couldn't even summon energy to go inside. What was waiting for me there? Another evening of polite coexistence. With someone who unilaterally changed terms of our relationship, without any real explanation. Another lecture about how I was part of the problem. For expecting basic human connection in marriage. That's when I realized I had a choice to make. Could continue living in this emotional desert, hoping for rain that would never come, or could redirect my time, attention, and resources towards something or someone that offered possibility of growth. As I finally walked through our front door, a plan was forming in my mind, not revenge, or some dramatic confrontation, at least not yet, but something more powerful. Complete redirection of my life's energy. If she had moved on from me without physically leaving, maybe I could do the same. My redirection began with small changes. Set my alarm for 5:30 a.m., full hour before she would wake up. Those quiet morning hours quickly became sacred to me, time that was completely my own, free from her judgmental stares and passive-aggressive comments. Started with 20 minutes of meditation, something I'd always dismissed as impractical. With my busy schedule, to my surprise, that brief period of morning stillness helped clear my mind. Of constant thoughts about failing marriage, next came physical exercise. Nothing dramatic at first, just basic push-ups, sit-ups, and short run around neighborhood. By time she emerged from bedroom, I had already showered, dressed, and started my day with purpose. You're up early, she commented on third day, finding me sipping green tea and reading at kitchen table. Slight annoyance in her voice was obvious. She was used to me being half asleep. While she dominated morning space, just making some changes, I replied casually, not offering any further explanation. She didn't ask for one, just made some comment under her breath about toxic masculinity and exercise culture. Pretended not to hear. Second week, I joined gym near office. Instead of rushing home after work, to increasingly uncomfortable environment. Spent an hour working out. Physical exertion became form of therapy. Each rep pushed out another fragment of resentment and self-pity. Started fantasizing about future, one where Olivia wasn't center of my universe. Also reconnected with old friends, ones I'd neglected during marriage. Guys Olivia had always disliked, for being too masculine or problematic. Nothing dramatic. Just casual lunches, and after-work drinks with soda or coffee. Was careful not to mention my marital situation. These meetings weren't about seeking sympathy or bad-mouthing my wife. They were about rebuilding connections. That had nothing to do with my identity. As husband to increasingly hostile woman. What was really interesting, realizing how many other guys were going through similar, not identical but same pattern. Wives or girlfriends who had gradually transformed into critical strangers, constantly finding fault with normal male behavior, while expecting financial benefits and emotional support to continue unchanged. My friend Lucas, 33, dealing with girlfriend who suddenly decided his gaming hobby was problematic, despite dating him for 3 years, knowing it was his main way to decompress. College buddy Thomas, 34, couldn't post anything on social media without his wife publicly commenting to correct his thinking on various social issues. It's like they want us to be both mind readers and punching bags. Lucas said during one of our lunch meetups, "You can't win." That phrase stuck with me. You can't win. Not if you keep playing by constantly changing rules. You had no say in creating, so maybe answer was to stop playing altogether. Create my own game. Started setting aside money in separate account, one Olivia couldn't access. Nothing dramatic. Wouldn't affect our household contributions. Just redirecting my discretionary spending, slowly building safety net. If nothing else, gave me sense of control. In situation where I felt increasingly powerless. 1 month into my redirection, caught my reflection in mirror. Barely recognized myself. Daily workouts had started reshaping my body. Shoulders broader, stomach flatter. Posture had improved. Constant tension in shoulders had eased. Most significant change was in my eyes. They looked focused, alive in a way they hadn't been since her declaration. Updated my wardrobe next. Nothing flashy or desperate, just well-fitted clothes. That suited my improving physique. Projected confidence. When I wore new shirt to dinner with friends, several people commented how good I looked. "You've lost weight, haven't you?" Our friend Megan asked during dinner party. "Just been taking better care of myself," I replied with smile. Olivia noticed too, though she tried to disguise her interest with criticism. "Isn't that shirt a little tight?" she asked one morning as I was getting ready for work. "Seems like you're trying way too hard." Very midlife crisis energy. I just smiled and left without responding, which seemed to annoy her even more. Redirection extended to finances as well. Always maintained separate accounts, alongside joint one for household expenses. Continued contributing my share to joint obligations, but redirected my discretionary spending. Expensive trip to women-only retreat in Costa Rica that Olivia had been hinting about for anniversary. That money went instead into high-yield investment account, under only my name. Also invested in photography workshop. Passion I had abandoned years ago, after Olivia complained about time it took away from us. Ironic now considering her stance. Photography got me outdoors on weekends. Hiking to capture landscapes at dawn. When light was perfect, these solo excursions became another form of meditation, behind camera, framing each shot. Found state of flow. Allowed me to forget everything else. Invested in decent equipment. Nothing outrageous, but good DSLR camera. Couple of quality lenses. First few attempts were pretty amateur, but watched tutorials online. Practiced constantly, soon capturing images I was genuinely proud of. Mountain landscapes bathed in early morning light. Close-ups of frost patterns on fallen leaves. Dramatic storm clouds gathering over fields. Started posting work online. Connecting with other photographers. Building small following. That appreciated my eye for composition. Some photos even started selling as prints. Through online marketplace. Creating small but growing side income. That went straight into my separate account. "Where have you been going so early on Saturdays?" she asked after several weeks of my new routine. Entitlement in her voice crystal clear. She was used to me being available whenever she wanted. Taking photographs, I answered simply. Since when are you into photography? The accusatory tone, like I needed her permission to have hobbies. I've always been into it. I just haven't had the time to pursue it until now. Her expression suggested she wanted to ask more, but couldn't quite figure out how, or perhaps didn't want to show too much interest in my life after deliberately stepping back from it. Well, I needed help with some things around the house last weekend. But you were nowhere to be found, she complained. Typical. No interest in my activities, just how they inconvenienced her. You could have texted, I replied calmly. Phone works even in the mountains. I shouldn't have to text my own husband to get basic help, she snapped. I just shrugged. Things change. Those two words hung in air between us. Saw something flicker across her face. First hint that she was beginning to realize her declaration might have consequences she hadn't anticipated. At work, my renewed focus paid off big time. Approached projects with clarity and confidence. That hadn't been there during months of marital distress. My boss, Robert, 45. Noticed the change. Whatever you're doing, keep it up, he said, after I successfully landed major client. That had been on fence for months. You're on fire lately. The compliment meant more than it should have. After months of feeling unwanted at home, professional recognition filled some of void. Not completely, but enough to keep moving forward. Volunteered for projects that required travel, something I'd avoided in past to spend more time with Olivia. 3-day conference in Manhattan, week-long training in Baltimore, client meeting in Philadelphia. Each trip was a breath of fresh air. Hotel rooms where I could spread out without judgment, meals where no one made snide comments about my choices, conversations with people who didn't view every interaction through ideological lens. During my Baltimore trip, met up with old college friend Kevin, who had moved there years ago. We hiked in mountains nearby. I took some of my best photos yet. When I posted them online, my follower count jumped significantly. Sold 3 prints within week. You know you could actually turn this into serious side business, Kevin said as we rested at Scenic Overlook. Your eye for composition is really good. His casual encouragement planted seed in my mind. What if photography wasn't just escape? What if it could be something more substantial? Potential path to different future? 3 months into my redirection, was sleeping better, looking better, performing better in nearly every aspect of my life, except my marriage, which remained this empty shell of formal interactions and parallel existence. The irony wasn't lost on me. In withdrawing her affection, Olivia had inadvertently pushed me toward becoming a stronger version of myself. It was like universe's weird way of compensating. What Olivia didn't know? I'd opened separate checking account, started routing 50% of my paychecks there, including my performance bonuses. Other 50% was more than enough to cover my share of joint expenses. Was building my escape fund, dollar by dollar. Not that I was planning to leave yet. Wanted to see how this played out first. One evening, as I prepared to leave for photography meetup, "Are you seeing someone else?" she asked. The entitlement in her voice was unbelievable. She could end our physical relationship unilaterally, but still expected exclusive access to my time and attention. I paused by door, camera bag over shoulder. "No," I answered truthfully. "Why would you ask that?" "You've changed," she said, her voice carrying note I couldn't identify. "You're hardly ever home anymore." The hypocrisy of her concern almost made me laugh. "I'm just redirecting my time and energy into things that fulfill me," I replied using her own clinical approach. "Isn't that what you've been doing?" "That's different," she responded, clearly irritated that I'd used her own logic against her. "I made a personal choice about my body and autonomy, and I'm making personal choices about my time and interests," I countered. "Seems perfectly fair to me. So you're what, punishing me?" she asked, her voice rising slightly. "Not at all," I replied. "I'm adapting to our new reality. You set a boundary and I respect that. I'm simply setting boundaries of my own." She had no response to that. I left without waiting for one. As I drove to meet my photography friends, realized something fundamental had shifted. For first time since her declaration, wasn't desperately hoping for her to change her mind. Was too busy creating life that no longer centered around her approval or affection. Met my photography group at local park. We were practicing night photography techniques. Among them was a guy named Daniel. Worked for local magazine. These are really good, he said. Looking through some of my recent shots on camera's display, we're always looking for local talent for our nature section. Would you be interested in submitting some work? Just like that, another door opened. By time I got home that night, Olivia was already in bed, probably annoyed that I hadn't been there, to listen to her latest complaints about coworkers or patriarchal oppression. I didn't care. Had bigger things on my mind. Pivotal moment came during company retreat, 6 months into my redirection. My team had gathered at Lakeside Resort for a weekend of strategic planning and team building. After a productive day of meetings, we relaxed around fire pit, sharing stories and snacks under stars. My colleague Victoria, 27, who had joined sales department 3 months earlier, sat down beside me. Victoria was pretty much Olivia's opposite. Warm, supportive, actually interested in other people's lives. You know, when I first started, everyone told me how lucky I was to be working with you, she said, voice quiet enough that only I could hear. Really? Why is that? I asked, genuinely curious. They said you'd completely transformed department's performance, but they also mentioned how much you've changed personally. Over past few months? She hesitated, then added, they said you used to be withdrawn. Almost sad. That doesn't match person I've known. Stared into flames, considering how to respond. Let's just say I went through some personal challenges and decided to focus on what I could control, rather than what I couldn't. She nodded thoughtfully. Well, whatever you did worked. You seem completely in your element now. As our conversation continued into evening, found myself relaxing in a way I hadn't with anyone in long time. Victoria was intelligent and insightful, with sharp sense of humor. That repeatedly caught me off guard. We discovered shared interests in photography and hiking. She seemed genuinely impressed. When I showed her some of my recent work on my phone, these are amazing, she said, leaning closer to swipe through gallery. You have real talent. Have you considered showing these professionally? Actually, I just started selling some prints online, and local magazine might feature few, I replied, surprised at how good it felt to share this part of my life with someone who genuinely seemed to care. That's fantastic. I'd love to see more of your work sometime, she said, smiling in a way that made me acutely aware of how long it had been since someone had looked at me with genuine admiration. Instead of criticism, warmth of her shoulder against mine sent unexpected jolt through my system, stark reminder of how long it had been since I'd experienced even casual physical contact. Carefully shifted away, uncomfortable with my reaction. Despite situation with Olivia, wasn't going to be that guy who starts something new before ending old. Later, as group dispersed to their cabins, Victoria walked alongside me on path. Some of us are planning sunrise hike tomorrow. Before meetings start, she mentioned, you should join. Perfect lighting for those landscape shots you love. I agreed. Next morning, found myself standing at top of ridge with Victoria and 2 other colleagues as sun-painted sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Took dozens of photographs, but found my lens repeatedly drawn to Victoria's profile. Against dramatic backdrop, Victoria represented everything I'd been missing: genuine interest, mutual respect, actual conversation rather than lectures, but knew I needed to resolve situation with Olivia. Before even considering anything else, when I returned home Sunday evening, Olivia was in kitchen preparing dinner, something she hadn't done for us in months. Timing was suspicious as hell. How was the retreat? She asked, her tone unusually attentive. Productive, I replied, setting down my bag. We finalized strategic plan for next quarter. She nodded, then asked, I saw some of the photos you posted. Beautiful location. It was, I agreed, wondering at her sudden interest. That woman in some of the pictures, is she on your team? Question caught me off guard. Hadn't realized Victoria had featured prominently in my uploads. That's Victoria, our new sales specialist, I answered neutrally. She's very pretty, Olivia observed, her eyes studying my face. The territorial behavior was rich, coming from someone who had explicitly rejected me. I hadn't really noticed, I lied, feeling oddly defensive. Really? You've taken about a dozen photos with her in them. Seems like you noticed plenty. The accusatory tone was unmistakable. I chose my next words carefully. She happened to be in frame during our group activities. Why are you asking about this? You made it very clear that certain aspects of our relationship are over. You don't get to dictate who I spend time with professionally." She turned back to stove, clearly annoyed that I wasn't apologizing or explaining myself further. "Just curious about your colleagues, that's all." "I have right to know who my husband spends time with." That was the moment I decided to accelerate my exit plan. One-sided nature of her expectations had become unbearable. Following week brought more surprises. Olivia started initiating conversations, asking about my day, even suggesting we watch shows together. Made dinner several times, didn't even pepper conversation with usual ideological commentary. It was like living with completely different person, or rather with person I'd married years ago. Before she'd transformed into stranger, I knew exactly what was happening. She was trying to re-establish control, to pull me back into orbit. Now that she sensed I was drifting away, realization strengthened my resolve. This wasn't about revenge, it was about self-preservation. Two key events aligned, created perfect opportunity for my freedom. First, receive significant promotion at work, with substantial raise and more travel opportunities. Kept this information to myself, despite Olivia's increasingly desperate attempts to engage with me. Second, through my professional network, learned that Olivia's company was planning major layoffs. Due to merger, her department was likely to be hit hard. This wasn't inside trading or anything illegal, just kind of information that flows through business connections in our mid-sized city. Timing couldn't have been better. Over past months, through networking and new social connections, I'd learned about these layoffs in detail. In fact, I'd helped colleagues' spouse get hired at competing firm 3 weeks earlier, knowing they'd need someone with Olivia's exact qualifications. Could have easily done same for Olivia. Single phone call would have secured her interview at minimum, but I chose not to. Instead, accelerated my exit strategy, consulted with lawyer discreetly, paying in cash from my separate account. Learned exactly what I needed to do to protect myself financially in divorce, documented Olivia's declaration about ending physical intimacy, her subsequent behavior, everything that might help my case. Also discovered through casual conversations that Olivia had been bad-mouthing me to her friends and family, painting herself as some kind of victim of patriarchy, while conveniently omitting her unilateral decision to fundamentally change our marriage. This sealed deal, my escape needed to be complete and decisive. 2 weeks later, Olivia's company announced layoffs. She came home visibly shaken. "My department might be cut next month," she said, clearly expecting sympathy. "That's tough," I responded, offering basic courtesy, but nothing more. "I'm sure you'll figure it out." Layoffs happened faster than expected. Following Friday, Olivia came home in tears. "I lost my job," she sobbed. "They eliminated our entire department." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, maintaining neutral expression. "What's your plan?" She looked shocked at my response. "My plan? I just lost my job. I need time to process this." "Of course," I replied. "Take all time you need. But our financial obligations don't stop. So just let me know how you plan to continue." Contributing to household expenses. Her jaw literally dropped. "Are you serious right now? I'm in crisis and you're asking about bills?" I shrugged. "Just being practical. We both contribute equally, right? That's always been your position." Next morning, I made my move. While Olivia was in shower, transferred every penny from our joint account into my private account, leaving just enough to avoid overdraft fees, then packed bag with essentials and my most important possessions. When she emerged from bathroom, I was waiting in living room with divorce papers. "What's this?" she asked. Eyeing documents. "Divorce papers," I replied calmly. "I've realized I deserve better than one-sided marriage with someone who unilaterally changed terms of our relationship. Without discussion or compromise." Her face went through series of emotions. Shock, anger, disbelief. "You can't be serious. Because I wouldn't sleep with you? That's what this is about?" "No," I said. "It's about respect and reciprocity. You made choice that affected us both, presented it as non-negotiable, and expected me to simply accept it. That's not partnership." She scoffed. "So you're running off with your little work girlfriend? How predictable. This has nothing to do with Victoria or anyone else. This is about you and me, and broken agreement between us. By the way, I've moved our joint funds into separate account that you won't have access to until we reach settlement. Her face paled. You did what? You can't do that? I just lost my job. How am I supposed to pay for anything? Not my problem, I replied, echoing same dismissive tone she'd used when ending our physical relationship. You should have considered potential consequences before making unilateral decisions about our marriage. This is financial abuse, she shouted, tears forming in her eyes. I need that money for basic necessities. No, this is consequences. And speaking of necessities, mortgage is due next week. I've calculated your half. It's listed in documents. I'll expect your payment on time. She started to panic visibly. Please, you can't do this. I have no income right now. I need time to find new job. You should have thought about that before declaring not tonight or any night and treating me like accessory to your life rather than partner. You wanted independence from patriarchal expectations. Congratulations. You've got it. Complete financial independence too. Over next week, Olivia's behavior changed dramatically. Feminist rhetoric disappeared, replaced by desperate pleas and attempts to renegotiate. She suggested counseling, hinted at reconsidering her stance on intimacy, even tried seduction one night, which I firmly rejected. My lawyer had advised me not to leave house yet, so we continued living together. In increasingly tense circumstances, Olivia's friends started calling me, telling me how cruel I was being, how I needed to support my wife in her time of need. I blocked their numbers one by one. Her parents reached out next, suggesting we all meet to discuss situation. I declined politely but firmly. Your daughter made her choice months ago. I told her father over phone, I'm simply making mine now. 2 weeks into this standoff, Olivia's desperation peaked. She had no job prospects, no access to our joint savings, and bills piling up. She approached me one evening, completely defeated. Please, she begged, tears streaming down her face. I need help. I can't do this alone. That's an interesting perspective, I replied coolly. Wasn't it you who told me that women don't need men? That marriage is just patriarchal construct? That physical intimacy with me was something you could unilaterally end without discussion? I was wrong, she whispered. I got caught up in all these ideas, without thinking about what they really meant. Please, I'll do anything. We can go to counseling. Rebuild our relationship. Whatever you want. The problem is, Olivia, I don't want that anymore. You showed me who you really are. Someone who views relationships as transactional, who takes what she wants and discards the rest. Now that you need something from me, suddenly you're willing to reconsider everything. That's not love or partnership. That's opportunism. I stood up, gathering my keys. I'm moving out tomorrow. Divorce papers are ready for your signature. If you contest them, I'm prepared for legal battle. That will drain what little resources you have left. If you sign them as is, I'll provide one-time payment to help you transition to your new independent life. You planned this all along, she realized. Her voice hollow. From the moment I said those words, you were planning your exit. No, I corrected her. I planned this from the moment I realized you saw me as disposable. You taught me an important lesson about self-worth, Olivia. And for that, I suppose I should thank you. I moved out next day. Into new apartment I'd secretly secured weeks earlier. Olivia signed divorce papers without contest, receiving her settlement payment as promised. Heard through mutual friends, she moved back in with her parents. In different state, her feminist ideals apparently set aside, in favor of practical needs. As for me, I continued building my new life, advancing in my career, developing my photography business on side, maintaining my physical fitness, and yes, eventually starting genuine relationship with Victoria, who showed me what real partnership looks like. 6 months after my divorce was finalized, my first photography exhibition opened at local gallery. Among images on display was striking landscape taken at dawn. On that company retreat, morning I realized I deserved better. Greatest revenge wasn't taking Olivia's financial security, or even her dignity. It was becoming man. I should have been all along. Confident, self-sufficient, and unwilling to accept anything less than genuine reciprocal relationship. In trying to diminish me, she inadvertently set me free. Sometimes Olivia still tries to contact me. especially when she's struggling financially. I maintain minimal business-like communication, as needed to finalize any remaining legal matters, but otherwise I've moved on completely. Our mutual friends eventually learned full story. Most understood my position, even if they felt I was harsh in my execution. But here's the thing about consequences. They're not harsh or kind. They're just inevitable. Olivia chose to destroy foundation of our marriage, while expecting structure to remain standing. When it collapsed, she was simply experiencing natural outcome of her own actions. This experience taught me that self-respect isn't selfish. It's essential, and that sometimes most powerful response to someone who treats you as disposable is to simply agree with them and walk away, not in anger or bitterness, but with calm certainty that you deserve more than they're willing to give. So if you're reading this and recognizing your own relationship in my story, know that you have choices. You don't have to accept unilateral changes to your marriage. You don't have to diminish yourself to accommodate someone else's ideology. And most importantly, you don't have to wait for permission to start building life that fulfills you. Person who tries to change rules without your input is telling you exactly how much they value your voice. In relationship, listen to what they're really saying, not just with their words, but with their actions, and then decide if that's enough for you.